In this week's episode, I talk about following up prospects, trademarking your business, and I do 2 shows this week. Hi, and welcome to episode 33 of Business Greenhouse TV. That's 33, close to 50, and we're nearly 1 year since we started doing these shows. It's been a real pleasure to do them. Hey, this week you're actually going to get two shows, 2 Business Greenhouse TVs, because I'm going to be doing a politics show. Yes, we've got an election coming up real soon, so I'm going to get another episode of this show out this week answering business and political questions. So in the comments below, get me your political questions around business, because in my experience, the two go together. We entrepreneurs are the only wealth creators on the planet. Government aren't. So, they're stewarding our money. Let's make sure that we are considering how that looks from a business perspective, because we want to have influence with them. So I'm going to be going on location and doing a show specifically about business and politics and how those two work together. So get me your questions either below here or private message them to me if they're a bit more sensitive. Let's get into today's show. Paul, what's our first question?
Cecil Benjamin asks, how often should I follow up on a lead after the initial contact so as not to annoy the prospect?
Cecil Benjamin, Chili Mentoring, let me give you a shout out. Great guy mentoring down in Sydney. So how often should you follow up your prospect so that you're not harassing them? Well, see, here's where I think a lot of people get it wrong. You've got to follow up. Like that's the game. And I find too many people are so passive in their customer acquisition that they really suffer. They don't get anywhere near as many clients as they need to, all right? So let's not, I think more is better than less, okay? I personally don't think you can annoy your clients because they're just going to say no. And for me, from my perspective, I'm always trying to polarize my audience. I want yeses and nos. I don't want maybes. And I never let anybody sit in maybe when it comes to making a decision. I'd rather push them to a no, which sometimes pushes them to a yes, than let them sit at maybe. So I would always go. Now I always joke with our clients, like how much is too much? I think if you get a restraining order from them, then you've probably pushed too far. Anything short of that, get back on the phone. Like following up once a month for the next 12 months is a waste of everybody's time. You better have to follow up 3 times in 3 days and push someone for a decision. Because I would rather get a no from them and go and chase somebody else than hopefully keeping this one alive and dragging this out for a long period of time. So you got to follow up. Like stay in the game until you get a no. That's my thing. Like you're not gonna, I think about our business, people trying to come in here and pitch for work and pitch for things. Like I'm not offended when they ring up a lot. Like I might just be like, yeah, no, and it's dealt with. Or I might be like, I really like this person's tenacity. Yeah, bring them in the office for a chat. But I'm never offended if they keep following up. It just elevates it for me to make a decision. So from your perspective, you've got to keep going back. Like that activity level is what required. And some businesses out there are putting you through that process to find out how much tenacity you've got. Do you really want the gig? Because if you're on a 1 a month phone call, you don't really want it. If you're persistent and calling up every day and hacking the system and sending things in and getting their attention, you obviously do. So that's essentially what I reckon you need to be doing. Polarize the audience, get a yes, get a no, be a good steward of that process and move on. The reason why a lot of people are, holding on to one prospect and choking it to death is because they don't have many prospects. Okay, so I think the best way around this scenario is to create a marketing machine that we've spoken about many times on the show, have lots and lots of prospects coming through the funnel, and then it doesn't matter if one says no, because you can just go and move on to the next one in the list, But when you've only got 1 or 2, I think we tend to choke them and hold on to them for dear life, hoping that one day maybe they might say yes. That's not as good a strategy as building a funnel, putting them through a process, yes and no, work with the yeses and move on, all right? So just make sure you're doing enough activity that you don't have to hold on to one prospect, and it's going to make or break your month. Build a machine that there's lots and lots of them coming in, and that'll make life a lot sweeter. Solid question. Paul, what's question number 2?
We have a private question. Is it a good idea to spend time and money trademarking a business logo or name?
So should we trademark? I'm going to run with yes. And is that for everybody? Probably. I wouldn't say everybody, but probably. So the reason why you trademark is literally so that you can own the differentiation between you and everybody else in your industry. It becomes a problem when you pick a name that's what they call descriptive. So, if you are Bondi Fish and Chip Shops, you'd never get a trademark because you can't own a monopoly by having your trademark, okay? But, if you were Aqueous Fish and Chip Shop, fine, because Aqueous doesn't mean anything, it's just an arbitrary name. So you could put those two together, okay? So you can't be descriptive, you can't have Bill's lawn mowing service because there could be 2 Bills and you can't have a monopoly on that. So you won't get that through. Now, the problem with not having one, in Australia right now, for example, 2.1 million small businesses exploding by the month. The problem with not having one is if somebody comes along or if you didn't do any research and you find that you're using the same name as somebody else, and if they can prove that they were using the name before you, and they can do that by registering the name, how long they've had the domain name, website, how long they've been using the logo on their invoice books, whatever. If they can prove that they were using it before you, then they have rights to every bit of profit you ever made. Okay, that's when it can get really messy. Now, most cases don't get to that, but that's the facts. And I've had clients who have got this thriving business up in Queensland. They drove down to Sydney for a holiday. They saw exactly the same, slightly different logo, but same branding, same colors. We did some research and found out they had been going longer. We were in trouble. So immediately had to go through a rebrand, which is a fairly expensive exercise. Otherwise, we run the risks of them being able at any stage in the future to come back and say, we're closing you down and we're taking any money you ever made in damages. So, I guess you've got to consider what your aim is in business. If you're just running a little sideline hobby business, maybe you don't need to trademark. However, if you plan to sell a business or systemize a business so that you can franchise and license it, you need to own the marks. You need to own the trademarks. If you don't own the trademarks, you literally, how can you sell a franchise to something you don't own? So yes, now let me just talk about how to do it. You can go to the national database, Atmos, ATMOSS, Atmos. That's where you can do the search registry and have a bit of a look. The problem is it's quite a complex software. So you can do a search, think no one's got the name you're going for, and actually they do because you didn't know how to use it correctly. So that's one area, but you can get a bit of an idea of what's already out there. And then I would personally always be paying for a professional for that, okay? Because there are 45 classes that your products and services have to go into. So you have to nominate a class that you're in. So, if a company was called Aqueous, using the example, Aqueous can be 45 of those. As long as they're in different classes, they can all operate with and not compete on each other. So, Aqueous Plumbing and Aqueous Swim School, okay, can operate together because they're in different classes. So unless you know what's all 45 classes, then you run the risk of getting it wrong. And then inside those classes, there are what's called specs. And if you don't get the specs right, then you basically leave yourself open anyway. Because if you leave a spec out, and that's what your competitor comes to you with, then obviously you're not protected and the whole thing was in vain. So all that to say that if I were you, I would be going to get legal advice. I've seen many people who have gone and done their own trademarks to save, $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever it costs. And then, but the problem is their trademark's got more holes than Swiss cheese. So it doesn't stand up, ever come an argument. So I'd be going to get a firm. Now, we could probably help you with that. I have contacts in the industry. So if you're considering trademarking, why don't I make this really easy for you? You can email me, wes@weshone.com. That's my direct email. email me and I'll send you back some contact details of some people just to try and shortcut the process for you, people that I trust, and that would be a cool thing. But ultimately, I think you've got to decide what's the end game. If you're just trying to run a sideline just to make a few bucks, maybe don't bother. But anything above that, yeah, I think you do. And if you want to sell a business, having the trademark makes the business worth a lot more than what it costs to trademark the business. Solid question. Let's go to Word of the Week. Okay, this week we're going to go literally just past where we were last week. Last week we did Proverbs 12:9. Now we're going to do Proverbs 12:11. Catch this. Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense. So how's this? Other versions of the Bible would say those who chase fantasies end up with nothing. Okay, which is quite brutal. The reason why I want to talk to you about that, I want to bring that into a 2016 business setting. I see a lot of people who are chopping and changing all of the time in where they're going, okay? So, or they'll do business for a little while and then they find out that it's tough. And it's a pattern that I see regularly where people say to me, they come to me and go, God's called me to this business, and they're so excited about it, and I'm pumped for them. I'm like, cool, you're going to change the world. And they go 3 months and then they hit a hiccup. And through sheer tenacity, they push on, it's okay. They get to 6 months, there's another hiccup, it's kind of big, but they dig deep, they press in, they get past it. At 9 months, they come across a really big hurdle, and then they come back to me and say, God's closed the door on that opportunity. And I'm sitting there thinking, I didn't think God was bipolar. He either did or he didn't. Like it's meant to be tough. You've got to push through anyway. So these people, and then they're like, then they come back to me next week. God's called me to this other business, and off they go and repeat the process and so forth. And I see this a lot within the network marketing business. Network marketing as a business model is brilliant. One of the problems is the people that get involved are very flighty. And they chase this one, and then they chase this one, and then they chase this one, and then a new one comes out where they can earn an extra $1 a year for being triple, double diamond, so they run off and do that one. We've got to get to the point where we stop chasing these fantasies and just get on with the work in front of us. One of the reasons why I made a lot of money and was profitable, because my business is boring. It's just month after month after month after month of doing the same thing, grinding it out, making lots of money, putting it aside and investing it. It's not as exciting as, chasing all these things. But the problem is chasing all those things, you end up with nothing, okay? Time in the market is a commodity that's not valued anymore. Like sitting in the same market, delivering the same products and services year on year on year is how you get the compound effect, because you get better, the market knows about you, you pick up all the referrals, all the smarts, you refine your processes. Like you can't do that when you're only doing a business for 3, 6, 9 months. You've got to be sitting in it year after year after year, getting better. And that's how you get the exponential growth that comes from this. As long as you're flip-flopping and changing and chasing all these new fantasies, according to Solomon, you have no sense and you'll end up with very little. So we've got to make sure that we're intentional about what we're trying to do. And if it gets boring, then find another way to enjoy it, but keep doing the same thing. It's that time in the market, it's executing, it's producing results over a long period of time that will build your business and build your wealth and build the kingdom, okay? That's as long as you're chasing, then it's very, very unlikely that you'll produce anything of significance. So let's stop chasing fantasies. Let's put our head down. Let's do the work. Let's execute. Let's build businesses and change culture. Next week, later this week, politics. We're going to be talking politics and business. So make sure, 2 shows in 1 week. Make sure you get amongst it. Ask me your political questions. I'm going to make sure I answer them on the show. Very interesting time for us in this political climate, so we've got to make sure we're right. I'm going to be bringing an unbiased view on how entrepreneurs can look at the political world. I'll see you later this week. Bye for now. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this show, why don't you subscribe by hitting the subscribe button, and then you'll get all the alerts of the future shows.